Well, remember a few years ago when I was talking about DNA methylation and methane and methylation was like one molecule difference between each other, CH3 versus CH4. I think CH3 is methylation, CH4 is methane. And when you gas yourself to death because you're so full of shit, you are asphyxiating your cells, causing then entropy, destruction, and then of course taking the herbs and the extracts and the starvation further finishes a person off. And if they get a major aggressive diagnosable condition, then they get even finished off even more in the oncology department or getting juiced to death through the natural remedies market, right? So yeah, but see, here's the thing. The thing that I couldn't bring that up like that because the intent is not for the system to do it to you, because their system is not doing anything to anyone that you haven't already said yes to. So I had to characterize that situation of being gassed to death, that the people do it to themselves. The people do it to themselves, and they employ people. They consciously develop a contract to say, I want you to end my suffering, thus end my life. And it's with my consent. That's how I had to characterize the information. I had the technicalities correct. I had to obviously put it in an organized fashion form because it was just kind of, just random information that I was picking up and making connections with. But no, I had to characterize exactly what I came upon, what I discovered correctly. Because nobody was forcing anyone to take their herbs, their cannabis. No one is forcing anyone to go use oncology. No one is forcing anyone to take their supplements. No one is forcing anyone to starve themselves. But see, during World War II, and I was raised Jewish, yes, and I was forced to read a bunch of books about the Holocaust that were pretty traumatizing, but it was necessary. And those people were forced into gas chambers. Those people were forced under experiments. Those people were forced out of their homes, out of their businesses. They were forced out of the mainstream and put in ghettos. That's the difference between 1942 and today. And so if the system wants to control growth and reproduction and control intolerance and destruction, then the people have to do it themselves. We can't have World War II happen again like it did. It has to be through your own hand, through your choice, through the upbringing, through traditions and cultures. And of course, rewarded enormously. If you're going to be a tool for the system, you'll get paid a lot of money. That's why the medical doctors, the surgeons, even the holistic professionals, get paid a shit ton of money because there's so many people who are suffering, who don't understand how to manage the suffering. They were in a culture of take away suffering at any cost. But since the environment was different 50 years ago, they can afford to play the game of, I'll take away your suffering. Because they didn't die right away. It was just over time they died. But you can never make the correlation that the herb 30 years ago was the cause of someone's death 30 years later. But it is the cumulative effect is what causes. But that was 50 years ago. Fast forward to today. Now we have the particles accelerating even faster. So again, we're taking it to physics and frequency wavelengths. So if you could see the micro universe and you can actually see energy, not just like a light or, the wind blowing trees, but if you actually can see the frequencies in the environment, not just feel them, but see them, like you see on a radar or scanner or something, I forget, a scan thing that shows you those frequency waves, right? If you can see that they're slower, then yeah, you have time to redirect. So when there are hills and valleys, okay, you have your energy going up and down, not a big deal. People have time to redirect, but it's when they become mountains. They become super high mountains, and then they go up and they go down, just like with the climate change last night. Last night, my arms were hurting like a mother. Oh my right arm, not my left arm, but my right arm. And I knew we were going to have a freeze warning this morning because they said on the Weather Channel that it's going to be a freeze warning. And I'll tell you, last night I didn't go to bed. I didn't fall asleep until about 10 o'clock. And I was tossing and turning because my right arm was in pain. Okay, my hands were in pain. My right arm was in pain. And I knew because the climate was changing, the barometric pressure was dropping so aggressively. And it finally, the pain stopped in my arm finally at 3 a.m. So I was able to get a few hours sleep of uninterrupted sleep. And I feel fine. But yeah. So the climate's changing, causing people to feel pain. And what are they naturally going to do when they're feeling pain? They're naturally going to check themselves into a hospital. So they have given consent and permission for someone to take away their life, their pain and suffering. Or they go buy a remedy, and take away their pain and suffering. Or they won't eat a food to take away their pain and suffering. Or they'll go find their naturopathic, osteopathic. They'll find their DRUG local dealer to go buy some cannabis, medicinal cannabis, to take away the pain and suffering. Or they go under the influence. They just drink a bunch of alcohol and just take away the pain that way, distract themselves. Or they take supplements, speed them up supplements, to then give them the energy to burn through that pain and suffering. So you've been conditioned not to deal with pain and suffering. You've been conditioned to think food is poison. You've been conditioned not to live. You've been conditioned to do your job, work yourself to death, play yourself to death, look like someone successful in our society, and then die. And go out in a blaze of glory with a load of money in the bank and a legacy you left behind. That's the new personal, voluntary Holocaust. And so, yeah, people are full of shit. They are gassing themselves to death, literally. But it's not like you take away all your shit, because you're going to need some of the shit that is for the environment, for your current environment in you. And when the climate changes, you're going to have to change that shit out. Release the demons, eat food, and keep evolving to your current environment. But what happens is people vasoconstrict their alimentary canal and then vasodilate their hormones so they can feel pleasure in paradise, right? Open up the hormone vessels and force the body to produce hormones so you feel great, feel wonderful. And then you go out in a blaze of glory, leaving a legacy behind of children and money and baubles or a load of fucking debt. Yeah. That's the holistic Holocaust. And the system didn't do anything to you that you haven't already said yes to already. And again, you've employed friends and family and everything else. So I'm just going to go down my timeline because I might as well. Because this is where I'm characterizing this exactly correctly. I'm not blaming the system. I'm putting the responsibility squarely on your shoulders, right back into your world. Because no matter what, you were told or you moved to areas where there's going to be a winter, even if there was a mostly summer like in Hawaii, weather changes. Climates change. Shit happens. And so you as a human have to understand adaptation. You as a human have to understand the power of food, meat, milk, cheese, eggs, fruits, vegetables. You as a person has to understand the power of adaptation, the power of strength. That isn't just physical strength, it's also intellectual strength. If you're all about looking hot and sexual and being physically strong and throwing your weight around, and thinking you're better than other people because you are, at the time, socially acceptable. The system will laugh in your face and change the climate, and then you'll realize that what you thought was socially acceptable is not survivable. Being hot and skinny and sexual is not survivable. Using the herbs and extracts and diets and things are not survivable, not in this climate change. Constantly attacking the life in your body and blaming the system when you said yes to every single thing that they've recommended to you is not fucking survivable. Obviously, look at the died suddenly groups. I don't care what you blame it on. So while the system played both sides of the fence, you always had a choice. Even today at the 11th hour, you still have a choice if you are still alive. Once you're dead, no more choices. Once you are dead, you have no more choices. And that's kind of the sad thing. People are dying suddenly. They thought they had a choice. They thought they had time. Well, nope, they don't. Because they never changed a damn thing. And so, yeah, the holistic holocaust. It's the full destruction of the body, mind, and spirit at the person's hand. And you have little Hitlers around you, all around you, bullying you or loving you into death and destruction. But see, loving someone is also bullying them because then you're manipulating them through love to get them to do something. And so, I mean, I can go and characterize and say, okay, what bullying is, but you can bully someone with love and hate and whatever. And of course, starvation and herbs. And then they call their remedies life and healing. Making money off you, hand over fist, because none of those supplements and herbs and extracts and everything are for free. No, they come at a major cost. They come at a cost that even eventually costs you your life. But you'll never hear a person who sells you that anything to say anything like that because they're already expecting to die someday. But they think that they're saving your life. No, they're just taking away your pain and suffering. But I'll get into that in a minute. And they call their remedies life and healing. Making money off you, hand over fist. So you could have a case against the VACCINE industry if you can prove correlation equals causation as far as the growth and the combination of bacteria attracted to each other. Especially if you've been told taking drugs that vasoconstrict or vasodilate, especially if you're under the influence of cannabis or whatever else, because you were told that that was the only thing, but at this point it doesn't matter. Okay? So if you're going to have a case against any kind of pharmaceutical industry, you better prove that correlation equals causation. You better prove that what was in that V at the time is exactly the bacteria that turned into a major disease that developed something that was diagnosable or somebody's death. But when someone died, it doesn't even matter. You throw money at it. It's not going to make a fucking difference if you're not going to change. So you have to condition to live, and you have not been conditioned to live. And during climate change, you have been conditioned to pass away and die and resist change. So you have to condition to live, and you have not been conditioned to live. And during climate change, you have been conditioned to pass away and die while resisting change. But it still doesn't change the fact that you won't survive even winning a court case, because it's never about the money. The system can give you all the money in the world, and if you don't take care of yourself, you won't survive to spend it. You can't eat money. Even millionaires are not even surviving their own protocols they develop on their own. Because they're using supplements, they're using blood, urine, whatever, as a concoction. They're skinny, they're claiming they're reversing the aging process, but they're telling you how they're doing it through supplements. I don't know how you can prove you're reversing the aging process. But they're skinny, they're in climate change. Hey, we'll watch you. We'll watch you see how you use blood and supplements to reverse the aging process, okay? Lots of money does not equal wealth or longevity. It's just a faster way to die because you think you can buy life. No, you can only buy death. So when you buy animals, you're buying death because that animal is eventually going to die because you're going to keep treating it to death because it won't be able to handle evolution. When you have children, you're buying death because not only are you diluting your resources, but your child will also be taught to dilute their resources and have big families and treat their disease and go on diets to look socially acceptable. The system used tools for the system to make you think money and wealth and power and prestige is the way to go. So look at all your influencers with their fast cars and big houses and shiny baubles and their perceptions that they're happy and successful and money and power, influence, and telling you that you could be a millionaire tomorrow if you only do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Selling you a dream, employed by billionaires, making money off the little people who are desperate. to be somebody. Yeah, that's the way to an early death. The system made you think looking hot and sexual was the way to be, with lots of friends and family. Yeah, that's an early grave. The laws were built for the system, not for you, because even if you could afford to break the law, you would still do yourself in because you're not conditioned to live. So you look at JFK Jr. He has all the money in the world. He has a legacy behind him. His dad, John F. Kennedy, right? JFK. And so JFK Jr., he has all the money in the world, access to all the greatest clubs and organizations, was given a magazine called George, right? And then he has a girlfriend who worked for like Ralph Lauren, some model chick, hot chick. And he gets to a plane, turns upside down, they fall and all die in the ocean. Him and his sister-in-law and his wife. Wow. And so, because even if you could afford to break the laws and live a fast life, you would still do yourself in because you're not conditioned to live. You have been conditioned to resist and die. Court cases and lawsuits don't matter. I learned that the last 7 years. Even though I won my court cases, I still spent money to take care of them, but I showed up. I was ready to battle it out with people. Even if I lost, I was ready to battle it out because I put my money where my mouth was. But it was worth it to me. It was a learning experience. And so you have been conditioned to resist and die. Court cases and lawsuits don't matter. That's just closure for the system. And throwing money at any problem doesn't fix it. Just like you're seeing all the different lawsuits against the data breaches. Yes, there are laws. But if you can afford to break them, you'll just pay people off and you got what you intended. People's information. So when you're hearing about Google data breaching, Meta selling your information, Netflix taking information, who knows what else. Oh, they put something in the V's that you people are like, oh my God, maybe you can prove that that was bad. But if they're making millions and billions of dollars off of those, on one hand, and then there's a lawsuit on the other hand that says, okay, now you're a judgment against you for like 100 million and you made like 3 trillion. It's fucking nothing. Oh, I won $5. Oh, I won this. It becomes laughable. I'm looking at all these different lawsuits against Walmart for food weight, all these lawsuits against other organizations, Verizon and all that. And they're like, yeah, put your information in here so you can get potentially maybe $100 or $5 because there's a lawsuit, there's a pending lawsuit, class action lawsuit. The lawsuits are for the lawyers and for the legal system. It's not for the little people. They're throwing you a few bones here and there to make you think that, oh, you won something. You didn't fucking win anything. And so the system got what they intended. They got the information. They got people to die faster. But that was along with everything else that was going on. They got the outcome was the intention. So it doesn't matter if you win or lose any court case or prove there was nefarious activity. The outcome was the intention. Even in the OJ case, the outcome was watching people react to somebody being accused of something with just very little circumstantial evidence that you couldn't really prove. But if you use another argument, that was just as good, and watch people get so divided with racism and everything else. So, the intention, when you look at the actual outcome, what people feel, what happens to them afterwards, even their politics, and you're watching people change through those court cases, through those controversial situations. It was never about the money or the justice. It was seeing how people reacted to situations that they never encountered before. And of course, the system wants your information. They'll break the law. You won't know until later on. And then like, oh, you caught us. Oh gosh, you caught us. You caught us breaking the law. Okay, here's $5. You feel better now? You feel better now? And the information they have is way more. It was actually benefited the system way more than giving you a little judgment. That's why when back in the last 30 fucking years of my life, and I've had people do stupid shit to me that I could have taken them to court or been a witness in something. But I'm telling you that there's no benefits being a witness to somebody. There's no benefits taking a case against someone when if even winning a little bit of money would be the outcome. Because the pain and suffering through that whole situation would take more from you than add to your life. And so getting justice against a perpetrator or a person or whatever, no. In my world, it wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth me, acting like a savior or acting like, some, oh God, there's another word for it. Like I would say vigilante, because that's, yeah. Holding people accountable in the court system is making money for the lawyers and the judges in the court system. It does nothing for the plaintiff, really, or the defendant. Because even in rape cases and murder cases, the deed was done. The trauma is there. The person died, or the trauma is there. What are you going to do to survive it? Obviously, the person that died, you can't bring them back. Oh, but it's closure for the people who are still alive. I guess. If the money that they win or watching somebody die in the death penalty isn't bringing that person back. Oh, so they can go on vacation or get addicted to drugs or quit their job because they want a bunch of money? To do what? Then think about what? And so, yeah, it's kind of crazy. So you have to figure out, is it worth you bringing someone to justice because you feel someone did something to you? Or do you make your life better? And that's, I guess, yeah, like people have to figure that out. But I'm telling you, the justice system is a psychological operation in of itself. It seriously is. But it makes people think that they have somebody on their side, that they're being heard. Well, now you have the internet. Now you have the court of public opinion. And so you can be your own fucking lawyer and take up for yourself. And the amount of money you put off to make off of people's information was worth more than the pittance of the judgments against you. So if you make $3 billion off of somebody and you were charged $100 million for data breaches, it's worth it. It's business. So again, if you even win any money for anything, if you can prove correlation equals causation, people are dying no matter what. So it doesn't matter if you win money, because you're not going to be able to fucking survive. Well, you'll give it to your kids, put them through college. And so the kids they go to college, they get married, have a bunch of kids, and they die in climate change. People are dying with all their winnings. And they also attract parasites, people who are desperate for money. Oh, I won a bunch of money in a court case or the lottery. Now everybody comes down to the woodwork, want to sell you everything, or they want to be your best friend. Yeah. Having lots of money or ideas, because even in the J world, how many people are attracted to my information, wanting to make money off of it? Okay? So even though I didn't have a lot of money, it was the power and prestige and the whatever that was attracting people, and they want to be part of it. They want to be part of the Jilly Juice world and write a book. All right. Ban from stream and block. All right. And so even if you win any money for anything, if you can prove correlation equals causation, people are dying no matter what. People are dying with all of their winnings, and they also attract parasites, people who are desperate for money. Having lots of money or ideas has more problems than it does solutions. So have an idea, you now have to learn how to protect yourself from those who hate your ideas. They hate what you say. They hate what you stand for. They hate everything about you. So even having an idea is like having money. It's currency. The system made money extremely hypnotizing, and they sexualized death. They sexualized destruction, and they used tools of the system to lure you into addictions and everything else, and distractions, of course. So if you have ideas or if you have money, you better learn how to protect yourself. And that's the thing that I learned about the J world, is ideas are worth money. Because people can spin them any way they want and make money off them. Or they can take care of themselves and make themselves wealthy with longevity and knowledge and adaptation. Or they can go and exploit somebody with my information. And people do. They're, oh, Jilly Juice is a cure. And they go sell it to their friends and family and be the hero in their life. No, you just sold another fucking remedy that's in the system, curing people. So yeah, the Jilly Juice can attract a lot of parasites, and it does. And so yeah, so so the Jilly Juice did equal money and social capital, and I learned I had to learn how to deal with that situation, and it was difficult. And so when people are trapping the holistic market, when they're trapping things in the body, those viruses in the body, what are viruses? Combinations of bacteria that would cause harm to persons' different organs. So I figured out now why people get cancer in different places. Okay? And so yeah, in the porn industry, when you have certain bacteria that are present in different parts of your genitalia, and they're not allowed to be released because they're always being treated and attacked, then you can get cancer of the penis, the anus, ovarian cancer, cervical cancer. And then when women are having so many babies, breast cancer. And that gets passed down from generation to generation. And so virus frequency and the bacteria who are attracted to each other. Why do I say they're who? Because they are little entities of life. They are a who. Even though not literally like a who, like a person, but they are viable life that have a type of conscious existence, developing growth, and yes, spiritual awareness. And so I'll be using the AIDS virus as an example, but every virus out there is a combination of bacteria when replicating cause disease influenced by different frequencies and environment and the person's lifestyle. So yeah, the system knows the frequencies of every part of your body. And so they can bring up all the different type of diseases. All these viruses have frequency to it. COVID has a frequency. And that's a combination of a bunch of different bacteria. Google what COVID is made up of. And then you see what people are going to the hospital for. So many different things. And it also wakes up other things in the body. That even though you are COVID negative, you could be waking up other monsters in the body that replicate extremely fast, especially during particle acceleration and climate change. And then people's situations are out of control and they have to go under the knife. Tortured by the medical holistic system. And so they're not inherently bad because they're part of your genome. However, when they're out of control, you have to find something neutral like salt to influence the immune system to break up the clumps. If you start using bacteria against bacteria, you'll develop a monster inside. And that's the VACCINE market. And of course, all the different herbs and remedies. If you overdo salt, you'll freeze those monsters inside and they'll become bigger and deadlier. That's why you don't turn to detoxes or the holistic market. Okay? You feed the body and release the demons. But if you're taking herbs and so many different things to stop the body from releasing, trapping those demons within, those bacteria become so huge they destroy the person, and then the person is forced to go into the knife and be tortured by the medical holistic system. And then the person is also forced to be under the influence for the rest of their life until they get checked out, until they check out 100%. So when you're under cancer, you're like, oh, well, I quit alcohol and I have all this cancer and all these growths, and now I'm only doing cannabis. That's going to make things worse. You never attack anything. Your intent is to never kill any life in your body because it will definitely kill you eventually. It'll rebel. It'll do a mutually assured destruction. Okay, so what's in the AIDS virus, Streptococcus pneumonia, and Haemophilus influenza are two of the most common bacterial pathogens in the HIV-infected person. So Haemophilus influenza, H. influenza, is a type of bacteria that can cause a variety of infection ranging from mild to severe. These infections can include ear infections, bronchitis, bloodstream infections. Some H. influenza infections are considered invasive, meaning the bacteria invades parts of the body that are usually free of germs. The most common type of invasive disease caused by H. influenza are pneumonia. And I'm sure I had that. Oh, I had that when I was a kid, but I'm sure I had that even a couple of years ago. Bloodstream infection. Meningitis. Yeah, I remember my neck was so, oh my gosh, stiff a couple of years ago. Meningitis, epiglottitis, cellulitis, and infectious arthritis. So Streptococcus pneumonia, also known as pneumococcus, is a bacteria that can cause pneumococcal disease. It's commonly found in the nose and throat of children and adults and can infect the lungs, pneumonia or ears, otitis media, pneumococcal infections. and most prevalent during the winter and early spring months. And we're in winter today, and it'll be spring tomorrow. You see, with the weather fluctuating so much, you're going to have things happen to people like that. That's why I felt the pain in my arm. Everything was stiff. But it was gone at 3 o'clock in the morning. But I'm telling you, last night, my whole arm was sore. It was so sore. My fingers were stiff. It was crazy. And then it's cold this morning. It's winter this morning. And then another one is HPV. But I wanted to give you 2 examples. I first start off with the HPV to show you what combination of bacteria that develop the virus that are also influenced by the frequencies. And so HPV is made up of, well, Gardnerella vaginalis, Enterococcus spp, Staphylococcus spp, Proteus, and Atopobium. And you can read about that. And it's all different bacteria that are found in different parts of your body. And then they also contribute to some of the diseases and diagnosable conditions. Okay? And that's why people get treated all the time and they have a short life, because they don't know how to manage the life in their body. So I did that reel about Lucifer and I saw the light. I'm watching 6 Feet Under. Oh my God, it's so good. If you can get past a lot of the sexuality and a lot of it's GAY sexuality in there, but that's okay. Guys kissing. If you can get past that, there's a lot of really awesome information in that show. I try to show my husband this because there's some really good information that they talk about, especially with psychology. It's a very, very cerebral, intellectual show. And he couldn't get past the scene. And I laugh because he's such a man, like hetero, Marlboro man type of dude. And watching 2 guys just go at it like Kirsten Wise, he's just like, dude, okay. He has to watch something manly where there's women doing that shit, not men. And I just have to laugh because it's just funny. But anyways, it's a great show. And it's definitely, there was a song towards the end when his wife, Nate's wife, is missing. And that song at the end of that segment was I Saw the Light. And I'm like, oh my God, I like that song. See, all these reels that I make is based upon some of the shows that I'm watching. And I add my own pictures to it to then give it more influence and emphasis. Because, yeah, we're in Luciferian times. This is Luciferian. When you're bringing different bacteria together causing sexual reproduction or offshoots of viruses, that's Luciferian. That's the light. They say, oh, go follow the light. Yeah, that's the virus community. That's pandemics. We're in Luciferian world right now, along with the Dark Ages. Because the Dark Ages was like pandemics and war and pestilence and all that stuff. And then you have the knowledge. You have then the Renaissance period, the classical period, right? And so when you have those 2 worlds together, the black and white checkerboard, now you see what the system is doing. They're balancing out both sides from that pandemic and death and destruction and poverty and climate change and whatever then you get the evolution. You get the light of knowledge, but people are going to be sacrificed if they don't redirect the situation. And so, duality, D-U-A-L-I-T-Y, and then /D-U-E-L. The fight, mutually assured destruction. The Dark Ages, a term for the earlier or entire Middle Ages in the Western Europe after the fall of the Western Roman Empire, was a difficult time to live. It's often characterized by economic, intellectual, and cultural decline. Now look at your people out there like, oh, Jillian's stupid. Salt's poison, right? And cultural decline, poverty, famine, disease, and warfare. The term Dark Ages comes from Latin Saeculum Obscurum, which Caesar Baronius used in 1602 to describe the tumultuous period in the 10th and 11th centuries. 10, 11, 11, 10. Numerology, right? The term is also used as to describe the relative scarcity of records from the early Middle Ages. And so then the whole Lucifer, the light bringer. So you have the Dark Ages, which is the black and white part of the black of the checkerboard. Then you have Lucifer, the light, and also yellow too. Lucifer is a Latin word for light bringing, and it's sometimes depicted as a young male light bearer representing the morning star, planet Venus. And it's a good morning, right? Or dawn. Lucifer is also known as phosphorus. Phosphoric acid, phosphorus, in Greek, and it's sometimes used as represents Satan. And then D-U-A-L consists of two parts, elements, aspects. Okay, so DUAL is two, coupled, binate, whatever, opposite, single. And then you have the DUEL, the dueling, a combat between two persons. You have the black and white, fighting each other. The binary arguments fighting each other. Okay, so yeah, the system is telling you in plain sight what's going on. And so somebody posted in the dice. So if you want to know where I get my information from as far as these posts where I black out all the information because it's, privacy, I guess. The Diet Suddenly groups. So you can go and type in that some of these Diet Suddenly worldwide and type in, some of the first sentences. You can see who posted if you're in those groups. But the reason why I black it all out, because if you're in a private group that's not public, well, they don't want you posting people's names and all. Okay, so yeah, so in Europe, in Portugal, we have seen not only sudden deaths in young people and children especially, but we are also seeing more and more deaths from cancer. Turbo, everything happens very quickly. It even seems that now treatments speed everything up. I couldn't have said that better myself. Yeah, the cancer that is most witnessed is lung cancer, and in the age group of 40 to 55 years. And then the person asks, is this the standard identical in your area? And there is 243 people responding and 101 comments. Wow, or reacting. And then you have another one. Just venting. A friend of mine's father passed away a few days ago from colon cancer. And he had a few you-know-whats, and that's the VAC, And the chemo didn't do anything. And a friend of the family ended up coming down with lung cancer and ended up getting an excellent oncologist who assured him he could take care of the situation with the treatments. Well, the treatments didn't work, and metastasized, popped up, and they hit them with radiation. That didn't work, and he kept getting worse. It seems if you catch the cancer after taking the the treatments basically don't work. Is anybody else seeing this? Well, it doesn't matter if they were VEED or not VEED. What I'm saying is that, when you have things that come up and then you keep attacking it, they're going to keep coming up and rebel. You're making them stronger. That's what happens. Whenever you attack anything, you make it stronger. Have you not seen that in the J world? People have attacked me left and right, and I've become stronger in this by understanding the situation that I'm in and understanding their point of view and even speaking to it. It doesn't mean I'm going to change people's point of view that were attacking me, but I'm speaking to their issues and saying, hey, this is something that you have to deal with. It's not something that you can blame anyone, and that new ideas aren't bad or wrong. But it forced me to go and research so many things that made me smarter. And so when someone is attacking you, literally, without actually harming you, it can make you stronger and more deadlier relative to what's going on up here. But what people are doing when they're attacking their cancer and disease, they're making it stronger. When you're using herbal remedies and all the things, you're making the cancer and the disease stronger. That's the holistic holocaust. And we have people in all types of religions selling their friends herbal remedies, diets and detoxes, making the disease stronger. But you can't tell them that because they think they're doing good. So yes, all the herbal, allopathic, supplemental treatments children and sick people get during this particle acceleration, climate change, are speeding up turbo cancers. Speeding up died suddenly. It wasn't noticed in longer wavelengths, right? Or in slower frequency times like 50 years ago. But it's definitely noticeable with shorter wavelengths. Because now you can see immediately when you do something, something happens almost immediately. Not quite immediately, but almost immediately. But last night when the barometric pressure was dropping and my arm was freaking hurting and it's cold this morning, I told my husband, now I can finally say correlation equals causation because the barometric pressure dropping so fast and then me feeling the stuff, okay, I can make that correlation. Because climate change does do that. But it's definitely noticeable with shorter wavelengths, higher frequencies. And then people don't have time to turn shit around. That's why you're seeing people now finally come into their own, mature, even at 12 years old, with the screw loose. And so when you challenge a 12-year-old who has a screw loose, they will have no problem destroying you, because that's what they were bred to do. There was no time to intervene and redirect that child, or give them treatments, or put them in an institution before they did something deadly. No, now kids are now becoming who they are. They don't have time to intervene and turn shit around. That's why food is the only answer if you want to prolong your life. And if you have issues with food, you're done no matter what. You need as much food as you can get in without triggering some aggressive condition. Because will you have what it takes to deal with that aggressive condition, even with the food you have an issue with? I think people are finally realizing and making the connections. It's not just the public health therapies that are speeding up all different growth called cancers and whatever else, but it's all the types of treatments. And if you don't have enough body to you, potentially redirect, cancer will ravage a person to death. So skinny people who get diagnosed with cancer, yeah, they probably won't survive the treatments or even the cancer. This is a different kind of war. This is a war at your own hand. This is a war of your belief systems. And then people project the blame. And since this is a frequency war, some places get more than others. Other places think people in other places are crazy. So if you don't get as many frequencies over there in California, and everything is great in your world, and here I am going like, God damn, and you're like, everything's great, pleasure in paradise. I'm used to all my pain and suffering, right? Then you think I'm crazy until you start feeling the heat in your world where you can't get ahead of it. And then one day it's died suddenly. And so until they start seeing frequency happen in their world, right? By that time, it's too late. They never listened to indicators across the world. They did not think it would happen to them. So these are people in California. You're watching me going off the deep end about shit, and you're like, Jillian's stupid. I don't feel anything. She's stupid. But they're under the influence. Or they're, who knows, they're not getting enough of the frequency. Who the hell knows? And so they won't think anything will happen to them until it dies. No different than the poem about not standing up for different types of people. So I remember this poem when I was saying that Obama and whatever were Hitler, and that the left wing was like going after the right wing, doing this and that, whatever, right? And so someone would say, first they came for the communists, and I did not speak out because I was not a communist. Then they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out for me. Now, back then, that was a time where you save other people. That was a time where it was a valid argument that why the Holocaust happened was because no one spoke up. But remember, I told you there is a reason why no one spoke up for the Jews back then, because they were blaming them for why Germany was in decline. Germany lost the war, World War I, and they were in decline, and their reputation was bad, and so much was going on, and so Hitler was like, well, I'm going to bring you back. I'm going to make you great again. I'm going to make Germany great again. Now you see that line out there? Make America great again? So when Hitler said, I'm going to make Germany great again, who did he demonize? And that's why I said the holistic world is like Hitler to the pharmaceutical world was the scapegoat. And so when you have the rise of the holistic world, the rise of the Nazi Germany to blame the pharmaceuticals and whatever they represented, and it could have been a group of people, even kids, then you're going to see why people feel justified why somebody has to die. Well, it's their fault. They got to die. I mean, it's kind of crazy, but but see, that's the thing. And so that was why they used that argument. Well, if you don't speak up for those that are being persecuted and excommunicated and all that stuff, then you're going to have genocide and all that stuff. But there's a reason why it happened. And they let it happen because it was justified through blaming, because they want Germany to be amazing again. And so if Germany could be amazing again, then a certain amount is going to then be sacrificed to make Germany great again. But obviously that didn't work very well. But you can't speak for anyone else in this war. That's the difference in this war. You have to actually speak up for yourself. You had to see who were afflicted by the cancers and realize you're next if you don't change. You're watching people die suddenly. And if you don't speak up for yourself and take care of yourself and redirect the situation and notice patterns outside of what somebody gave you, you're next. How many people are burying their husbands and their wives and they still do the same shit over again? They don't change. They just buried their wife. They just buried their husband. Their husband or wife got diagnosable conditions. And the wife and the husband are still doing the same fucking thing. Oh, that's right. It was them. They're special. They're not going to die. They're special. Why should they change anything? They're fucking special. And so if you won't speak up for yourself, no one around you will speak up for you because they're also dead as well or dying. And so when the cancer ravages a person, despite all the treatments, you only hope they have enough body to redirect the situation, which is why larger men can survive chemotherapy and radiation. And why some of these women, a lot of these women, who are smaller and slight, get ravaged by the treatments, along with the cancer. And that's the main issue, is people do not have enough body to them to redirect the situation or survive the aggressive treatments they were under as soon as they were diagnosed. Because the treatments also disabled the person's immune system to work effectively. The person had really nothing working for them, not even their friends and family who kept taking food away from them and taking them to those appointments. And so that's why they go very fast in this environment. And of course, the diets and the pharmaceuticals and the medications made it even more difficult for the immune system to work for the person. So the environment took the person out, even when the cancer is under remission, because the person did not have enough immune system to push out the blood clots. That's called died suddenly. So I'm watching 6 Feet Under, and I'm watching almost like Grey's Anatomy, and they're showing you at the beginning of every episode how people die, whether it's somebody that's like 30 years old on the treadmill in a gym, a dad who's part of a cult, a daddy cult, dies in the backyard after he gives a sermon to the children. Other people die from, home invasion or a robbery, and then the whole segment of the storyline of that family. That's a fucking great show. You should watch 6 Feet Under on Netflix. I'm serious. If you can get past the gay scene. That's died suddenly. That's why I milk and cream loaded myself 2 years ago. That's why I was eating so much pork chops and steak for a few months. Because every single day, basically every single day, now I just eat red meat and pork once in a week. Like on the weekends, my husband and I will have a steak and have something like that. But during the week, I'll have, my spaghetti, which you need. But I don't do so much meat because you have to have the gluten and the carbs for the energy. Or else your body's going to convert you get so much protein that you don't have enough energy to burn. And so then people die because they don't have enough. It's like your DNA is falling apart. Your DNA ladders are made of glucose, right? And so when you disable the glucose DNA ladders, and then those hydrogen bonds of those amino acids that are the GATTCA, okay? You fall apart, you disintegrate, you'll shorten your telomeres. You need the gluten. The inflammation is by trying to release the demons. People don't understand that. They don't understand the power of inflammation is the fact that your body's trying to release the demons, and you have to release those demons and rebuild your body, but people don't understand that. And so I was eating pork chops every single freaking day. And I was also eating the pastas and the milk. I remember when I said I bought so much of that, those ice cream sandwiches, and some holistic person's like, why would you do that? Like, was kind of nasty about it. Well, yeah, she's a holistic person. She's selling remedies to people, taking away their life, pain and suffering. But I wanted to rebuild my body. And so that's why I milk and cream loaded myself 2 years ago. That's why I was eating so much pork chops and steak for a few months, basically every single day. Now I just eat red meat once a week. I was catching up. I was giving my body, and if I need to, because the environment has changed, then I'll eat more red meat, even during the week. Because I eat spaghetti during the week. Sometimes I'll make a steak thing where I'll make steak like I'll buy those cubed, not cubed, what is it? Yeah, this little cut piece of steak, and I put peppers and bell peppers and mushrooms and onions, and with a little bit of juice, and what kind of juice? Like fruit juice, as like a saute with oil or butter, and then I let it refrigerate overnight. I can even eat that cold, okay? And it's good. And so I was catching up. I was giving my body the fuel and resources to deal with climate change. I took naps. I slept. I ate. I eliminated and helped my body eliminate without forcing it to do anything. I used my immune system, called my respiratory system, to leverage the pressure to push stuff out. But I did not force my body to do things against its will or what it was not conditioned to do. So I've been pulling crap out of my ass ever since 2016. Okay? I told people this, and then people are like laughing at me about that, so I stopped saying it. But that's what I was doing ever since 2016, was pulling crap out of my ass because I would get so constipated. I have to relieve the pressure or else I get a heart attack or a stroke or be so uncomfortable. So I had to relieve the pressure by pulling out that crap. But I did not force my body to do anything against its will by taking vasoconstrictors or vasodilators that are in the medical holistic energy healing world. I had the last 3 years to condition my body to release and release and retention. And it was fucking brutal. So having to cough and sneeze and blow my nose, that was the other leveraging or the other conditioning up here. I already conditioned down there to release, and I would help it release. But up here was really the main thing the last 3 years. It was the respiratory side. That was the COVID. By the way, even those who don't get VED are dealing with turbo cancers. But you would never know this because you don't know people's medical records. But yes, if you are in a diet settlement group that just blames the public health therapies, you could say public health therapies are one major factor or excessive growth in particle acceleration and climate change, but the holistic system is also to blame. They just exchange one drug for another. And then hurricane season. And so before climate change, we were playing musical chairs, walking to the music. Now the music has stopped and everyone is fighting over the chairs, bumping each other off. That's the diet suddenly. The system sexualized death, so it became desirable. And so the system told you, the medical and holistic system means to end your suffering, not save your life. First responders risk their life to save yours. But the health and wellness vet system world means to end your life as humanely as possible. I've been trying to say it this way for the last 7 years. I'm trying to psychologically give you access to all food. Your friends and family are psychologically and intellectually trying to take food away from you, sometimes even physically. That's the difference between my world and your world. It's your family and friends and religions who are starving you. And since they're suffering, they will end your life through their own psychological operations. They will tell you food is poison, that's why you're suffering. But they will never admit their own starvation is what caused their suffering to begin with. And so the irony is watching some of the people in the Hebrew world sell each other or tell each other to take these type of leaves for cancer. Saying stay away from meat, milk, cheese, and eggs and whatever. Stay away from pork. And I can see now why there's a split in the black and white as far as the Judaism. There's the white Jews. People are like, oh God, they're the fake Jews. Okay, whatever. There's no such thing as fake Jews. There's evolution, yes. And so there is the European Jews that may have been more evolved than maybe some of the other tribes that are stuck back in the herbal days of starvation and intolerance. And so that's what you're seeing is watching the old world and the new world fight it out. And some happen to be black and white. But that's where I think all the claims against the fake Jews, because there is a segment of the Jewish population that are still back in the old tribal days of fighting and wars and destruction. And they can't evolve. They won't evolve. I'm telling you, who was attracted to me the most in the beginning of the J world was the Hebrews. They understood the salt. You can't do too much salt, obviously. But it was the Hebrews that understood where I was going at that time, but they couldn't evolve with me. That was the issue. That's why I don't have any more Hebrews really follow. I mean, they're following me, but they're not really taking to my information. They're back to where they were back when I first began. And I find that really freaking interesting. And so I still observe them in their natural habitat when you think about it, because with their groups, their friends, like, oh look, I found these anti-cancer leaves. What were they called? Soursop leaves, right? And so somebody gave them soursop leaves to go and make a tea out of, or Essiac tea, anti-cancer. And so they're now telling each other to go drink these tea leaves to go against cancer. And so the irony is kind of crazy around the Holocaust holistic system practiced by those who were victimized back in World War II. But it's interesting that it was in Europe that those were victimized. And then they evolved in Europe. Or who knows? I mean, I don't know all the... It's crazy. But it's interesting to see the Hebrews, a lot of them, I mean, I won't say they're all, a lot of white and black, obviously, but I haven't seen any, like, as far as my dealings with people, as far as the Jewish religion, I see a lot of the European Jews that they're not, or practicing that, or they're not black. It's the Hebrews that are black in that tribe, and I don't understand why that's the crazy thing. So I'm noticing that split right there. If the Hebrews want to survive climate change and things are going on, they're going to have to evolve. Seriously, you got to get away from the starvation. You got to get away from using tea leaves. You got to get away from all the supplements industry. But again, if people refuse to evolve, and that includes even some of the European Jews that I know that are also selling supplements. So it's not just the Hebrews. It's also some of the European Jews that are on my Facebook who are gurus, who are in the healing world. But I still notice the difference because there's still another segment. They're like, oh, fake Jews versus real Jews. And I can't buy that anymore. I'm done with those arguments. And so it's your friends and your family and your religions who are starving you. And since they're suffering, and also the JWs, the Jehovah's Witnesses, part of the starvation, turning to remedies and all that. Okay? They will end your life through their own psychological operations. They will tell you food is poison. That's why you're suffering. But they will never admit their own starvation is what caused their suffering to begin with. It's not even just the Christians or the Jews. It's also the energy healing people, the atheists that are against air, food, and water. Oh, it's crazy. It's crazy. And so Yuval Noah Harari, he said, people are free to believe gods if they find it helpful, but there is no need for gods in order to live a good life. He's absolutely correct. Morality doesn't mean obeying gods. Morality means liberating yourself and others from suffering. Now that's interesting. Yes, I have liberated myself from astronomical suffering, and I will let the licensed professionals like Holistic Allopathic liberate others who are suffering. If that means diet suddenly, you asked the system to end your suffering and treat your disease, and you said food was poison, so please starve me. That was the message I was trying to say since 2016. The system forced you to become accountable for what you intended. Okay? And you kept demonizing me, and I was trying to feed you even after I got away from the holistic system. But I knew you had to deal with certain amounts of pain and suffering. But if you could not, you had to be humanely put down, called hospice or died suddenly, via treatments and starvation diets. And you can't make that decision for somebody else. You can't force them to suffer. And you can't take away their life because you're suffering. You can only offer information and give people the choice. And so the irony is you have the Hebrews that are using all these remedies in one area of the J world. And then you have, Yuval Noah Harari saying that we want to liberate you from suffering. If that means that you have to die suddenly or be treated to death and die at some point, that's morality. And so he might be a European Jew, and we have Hebrews that are practicing the same thing. They're basically aligned. You want to end suffering? It might be a die suddenly or being treated to death. And so then Operation Paperclip, the holistic equals Holocaust. Everything has finally come full circle. So it was a conspiracy a long time ago. Oh, the Nazis never came over to America. Yeah, they did. And they were given, carte blanche to do whatever the heck they needed to do to figure out how to do what they intended to do by controlling the population, but this time not forcing people to die, but to give them the choice. But there's also psychological operations. That's why you have the Freedom of Information Act. That's why everything is public. That's why they tell you what they're doing. They put what's on the back of the bottle, on the inserts. And they also warn you. I warn people in the beginning of the J World. Lillian wrote down every single thing that could possibly you have to experience. We understood one side of it. You had to face the pain and suffering, but the other side of it was you had to eat all food in the food supply and figure out why you have allergies. And we had to pick that apart for years. Why do you have food allergies? Because you're starving. The body needs to be activated and you are trying not to activate it. So that's why you have kids who can hardly eat any fucking food because the mother is starving, the father is starving, so the kid's starving, and food's going to cause them disease and pain because the body has to push out shit and bring up stuff and rebuild. And the kid is not equipped to deal with that energy conversion, so they're going to have to be humanely put down and given a great life. Here, go to Disneyland. While we give you operations and freeze everything and you can't feel anything and be under the influence or whatever, be distracted, pleasure in paradise, given whatever the hell you wanted until the system turns the climate a different direction, and then people don't survive. But it was at the hand of the parent, and it was the person's choice. And so major trigger alert, this is when I figured some shit out. The holistic world is to HITLER, like Big Pharma is to those who scapegoated Big Pharma to blame using the holistic system as a platform against Big Pharma. Now that is sort of confusing, but not. So phonetically, holistic sounds like Holocaust. Many times I've done talk to text and the holistic came out to be Holocaust. But yeah, the rise of the holistic world is like the rise of Nazi Germany. It was the last 12 years. That was the rise of Nazi Germany the last 12 years. Blaming, blaming, blaming. And when you destroy somebody, so how did the deaths in Germany, well, that was intended, the deaths, the concentration camps were intended as a justification to make Germany better, great again, or whatever. But when someone like me or anyone that comes on and says, okay, I have a new idea, new this, then people would spiritually and intellectually and even verbally attack you, destroy your spirit. HANG you for your beliefs, for your thoughts. That was the controversies, the mainstream versus the conspiracy world, was people attacking each other in the name of what would make them great again, what would make society better. And so if the Democrats would sacrifice Republicans, everything would be great again. If Republicans sacrifice Democrats, everything would be great again. But in the meantime, children are being sacrificed, the elderly are being sacrificed, the immunocompromised are being sacrificed like a concentration camp. And so many times I've done talk to text and the holistic came out to be Holocaust. The holistic world is Operation Paperclip. Hippies, spiritual people, religious fanatics, we did it to ourselves. How many children have died because mom and dad were against Big Pharma using supplements and elderberry syrup? Why did 6 million JEWSs die in the Holocaust and no one stopped it? Because when Hitler rose to power, he promised them pleasure in paradise and justice and found a scapegoat. Now look at all the activists out there. What do you think all the gurus and the mommy and me groups are promising their flock of followers? Justice, pleasure, and paradise. There is no such thing as justice, only closure. Sometimes death is closure. But you can't choose that for somebody else. People have to choose closure for themselves. Or the justice system will determine if they deserve the death penalty. Closure. Children right now are like the 6 million Jews in the Holocaust, and parents are justifying herbal treatments and treatments in general in the name of resisting Big Pharma, their nemesis, their scapegoat. And when Nazi Germany rose to power, all death was justified in the name of Germany's reputation. That is why no one stopped the Holocaust. People felt justified, which is why people expect to pass away someday. they feel justified ending their own suffering and their children's suffering in the name of peace. Starvation, herbal remedies, and oncology and getting your head shaved is reminiscent of World War II. I have read too many books and saw too many pictures of concentration camp victims, skinny, starving, head shaved, and devoid of life. It kills me watching humans repeat history voluntarily. Fluoride in the water to concentration camp people is like cannabis to ailing people. I've seen that comparison, that fluoride is like drugging the population into submission. What the hell do you think cannabis does to you? What the hell do you think salt caves do to your child's mucus? What the hell do you think all those remedies and surgeries do to your children? What do you think of starvation is doing to your children when they're too skinny and nutritionally devoid, when they're breaking bones at 8 or 9 years old? Then they get cancer, then they have to shave their heads so they can go through the treatments. But this time you do it to yourself and your family. No one is doing a damn thing to you. You guys are choosing to end your suffering through starvation and treatments and radiation and direct energy weapons using the energy healing world. And then you fucking justify it and blame somebody else for your own disaster of a life. And your children repeat the same mistakes that you did. I see even some Jewish people repeat the same mistakes to their own family. Somebody has to break the cycle. It doesn't matter if you're a Jew or a Gentile. The hospital system is one large experiment. Break the cycle if you want to survive, or the system will reward you handsomely for being part of the depopulation agenda. You will make money hand over fist and even be worshipped for your part in it. I want no part of it. And so women are the hope for the future. Not just because they hold the power of life between their legs, because they have the power to evolve and change and even potentially survive it. So if you don't want to be, subjected to a personal holocaust that you were told to by your friends and family and your mom and your dad and your sister and your brother and whatever, then you have to be the one to evolve. Men will have an issue with it unless they are guided by the right women in their life. And right now, a lot of men are subjected to the wrong women in their life who will take them down. And indefinitely. Men are so strong, nobody challenges them, so they throw their weight around, and you can't tell them anything. They have no reason to change. They won't until they're forced to. And their simpering wives just support whatever the hell they want. Because the wife can't even challenge her own husband. She's not supposed to. She's just along for the ride. She's a passenger and an observer in her own life. And this is like the mainstream, the Stepford wives. The wives that are like, yeah, whatever. Jillian's stupid. And then she becomes a human sacrifice later. And then everybody worships her falling to the sword of assimilation, even if it was beyond her capacity. That's women sacrificing another woman. She becomes the human sacrifice later. And everybody worships her falling to the sword of assimilation, even if it was beyond her capacity. Women are the evolution because the men never had to be. The reason why the men were breadwinners in the beginning, because they were consistent and they were reliable. They didn't have children or have evolutionary issues like PMS or premenstrual disorder. Their wives had the babies. They didn't have the babies. The wives did. They got to go off to work and work all day and be amazing, and then go to their gentlemen's clubs and drink liquor and talk about world issues, and then go home to the woman, just like in 6 Feet Under. Frederico, one of the partners in that funeral home, his wife was under so many different drugs because she was so stressed out working as well as taking care of 3 children. So then she takes Paxil and takes other types of drugs to go and balance out all the hormones because they're all out of whack. So she's on like 3 or 4 or 5 different drugs that even one of her friends recommended that would counteract her situation. And she's trying to survive that situation, but that's what these women are going through. They are slaves to that system, and then they're being drugged so they can handle taking care of 3, 4, 5 children and be that wife and that symbol of something. I don't know what. The women could be hope to other women, but the men won't be the hope because they never had to change. The men were given the gift of power, privilege, ability, and even consistency that women will use drugs operations to keep up with her men. Women will make or break themselves and their children. The men will just break themselves until they're forced to change. And you hope your man survives the changes in the environment. I worry about my husband. I do. Because he's a man's man. There are very specific roles that women have in his world. There are specific jobs, specific roles. Even though I'm a little bit different and I want to learn certain things, I have to pull it out of him to learn the tools that I need to use to learn shit. Because in his world, what he was raised with, the women do this, the men do this, and they don't ever intermix. I'm not supposed to mow the lawn. I would love to mow the lawn, but I'm not allowed to. Oh, okay, fine. One day I will. I don't know. I doubt it. Because he's afraid I'm going to cut off my foot. Okay. I mean, I understand. Because he's trying to protect me. So I don't argue with him too much. But at some point, maybe one day, I'm going to have to do things. Well, I'm going to have to learn on my own. Because to him, teaching me how to do things that he should be doing is making him less of a man. And I get it. I'm not taking that away from him. So I'll learn things as I need to learn them. Okay? And so the issue with women trying to be like men and keeping up with them, with operations and whatever, is the fact they will have children who will be monsters in the future. Because she'll get operations, she'll do these certain things, she'll harm herself, and then it's passed down to the child. When we have developed such extremes in our society, how do you develop a middle ground when you keep going to extremes and try to keep up with other people? People disfigure themselves and harm themselves to keep up with their mate and the people around them. And that's why you have monsters in our society and predators. People are forced to conform even when they don't have the capacity to. I know I need to drink water. And so, if you cannot face ugly, and I've been facing ugly for the last 7 years. If you cannot face ugly, you do not deserve the beauty. And I'm going to be quite honest with you. That's why I'm not a toxic positive or a consummate pessimist. Okay? I face the fucked up shit in our world. I talk about it. I don't pretend bad shit doesn't exist. And I protect myself. And so I observe people who are so oblivious, living in toxic positivity or a consummate pessimist. And so that's why I post what I post. That's why I write what I write. Because you can't confront people. You don't want to point them out. I mean, you can praise them or point out the things that are good and positive. The general public would believe would be positive. And calling other names out with that way. But as far as the things that you don't agree with, you don't call anyone out. You don't discriminate against a culture or a person, place, or thing, or sexual orientation. If you're gonna have an issue with sex, it's gonna be all sex, not just a sexual orientation. And that was one of the valuable things that I learned through the Dr. Phil show. Even though I said that yes, sex was between a man and a woman, I didn't say specifically who was a man and who was a woman. But people took that as being homophobic, but no, because. Could you call ovaries a woman? Well, it could be a man with ovaries. And that was not distinguished. Not that people would agree with that. Nobody agrees with that, but that's what the other arguments. And so there was an implication that it was intolerance and other shit. And I understand that. So if you took away the social constructs and just dealt with the body parts, you wouldn't call an ovary a woman. It's just an ovary that has the capacity to develop ovum with other processes. But when you have men who can have ovary implants, I guess, right? And it's viable and they can develop a baby and something else, then those social constructs become a bit of a gray area. Okay? So there's been so much learning the last 7 years, and I'm telling you, evolution is going to be your ticket to paradise, your ticket to longevity. But right now we are in hell. We are in literal hell because people are dealing with cancer, disease, chronic illness, died suddenly, resistance to change, and that makes people ugly. And we have to face it because we developed it, we support it, but we didn't know any better. But that's the thing with evolution. You don't know until you know. And once you know, you have a choice. That's why anyone that comes across my information, now you have a choice. Ignorance is not a choice anymore. I mean, ignorance is a choice. But ignorance is not an excuse. That's what I meant to say. If you choose to resist my information, you still acknowledge it exists, and you still choose to do whatever opposite or whatever. But the system gives you all the warnings. Nothing's inherently poison unless you're in a gas chamber or carbon monoxide poisoning because you're in a closed garage with no windows open. But nothing is inherently poison. You just have to figure out how to manage the life that's developed because of whatever it is that whatever your environment holds and your lifestyle. You have to know how to release demons and deal with all the bullshit and stay home and stay safe, all that stuff. And I'll tell you, it's a lot, and people are not conditioned to. A lot of people are not conditioned to do that. So that's why I call it the holistic Holocaust, because it is the literal destruction of the mind, of the body, mind, and spirit. And it starts with taking away people's pain and suffering, and it starts in the home. It's the mother who introduces ending people's life right out of the get-go. And so now mothers have a chance to either follow that succession of death and destruction, die suddenly, prematurely, or she will plant seeds in her kids to realize that they can't afford to take away their pain and suffering. They can't afford to be cured in a dynamic environment such as this. It will be the mother. And so we'll see how many people in the conspiracy world, in my world, the anti-chemtrails world, when I'm posting this information, we'll see if they even, well, it doesn't even matter. When you're too far gone, you won't even acknowledge that maybe you've made a mistake in telling people the food is poison, promoting cannabis, and taking away people's pain and suffering. When you're too far gone, you will never say anything that you did was a mistake, because you still have to justify your choices in life. And it's very difficult for people to say maybe they were wrong somewhere. So I would imagine most people in the conspiracy world will not even acknowledge this information. And if they do acknowledge it, they're not going to change. But I think it's interesting. All right, bye.